What has your experience that you briefly talked about in the assembly taught you about dealing with criticism or setbacks?
Yeah, I think, for me, criticism is healthy if it's coming from the right place, if it's objective, it can help, right? Like, we're all on a pursuit to be better. And so sometimes, constructive criticism can be helpful. I think where I'm very clear about the difference is when people use criticism as a means to then attack you as an individual, right? And sometimes a lot of people don't know the difference. A lot of people, specifically online, don't know the difference between me saying, oh, I think you could have said that better, or I think you could have done this better, and this is why. And because you said something I don't like, I then attack you, or I say that you should lose your job. Like, that's not criticism, that's just abusive. So I think it's, unfortunately, the lines have been blurred between criticism, defamation, abuse, and because no one really checks it online, no one really does anything about it, people now think that criticism and freedom of speech, I see a lot of people saying, oh, it's, I have the right to say whatever I like. You actually don't. We've always had to regulate our speech and make sure that we're not delving into lines of hate speech or, defamation. So I think it's just really important to know the difference so that you don't get yourself in trouble.
Yeah.
Okay, so since you faced such terrible defamation and harassment online, how did this reshape your understanding of your own identity or your relationship with your career and public image?
Yeah, I mean, it's not nice at all to be defamed and attacked and harassed online. And I think when the person that's doing that has millions of people following them, it then has a knock-on effect on so many other people. So it's very, very difficult, and it's caused a lot of anxiety within me. It's made me question my work, made me question why I'm in this business. But I think at my core, I know who I am. I know my value. And so I always think of it like a tree. A wind is going to blow a tree to a certain extent, but if the roots are quite deep, it's not going to fall. I think I see confidence in a very similar way. If you have a deep-seated confidence within you, you know who you are, you know what your values are, you know your heart, you're a good person. People can say all manner of things that are going to make you sway. They're going to touch the surface. They're going to affect you, but it's not going to completely destroy your who you are, because you've got confidence deep rooted. And I always say to young women like yourself, that's really, really important. It's the internal confidence. It's the narrative that we tell ourselves about ourselves is really, really important. It has to be a positive one, so that when people say negative things about you, it will affect you, but it doesn't shake you to your core where you cannot continue to be the person you are. So I would definitely encourage that. Work on your internal confidence and your validation, your self-validation, as much as you can.
People wanted to know what misconception about harassment survivors you wish more people understood, especially in sports.
I think there's a misconception right now that if harassment is done online, it's not the same impact as if it's done in real life. And actually, I would argue that it's worse online, because in real life, if one person's harassing you, you're just dealing with one person. Online, if one person's harassing you, it's in full view of millions of people who then think it's okay to also harass you. So I think the law really needs to recognize that actually social media has made harassment worse. And I'm very passionate about making change to society through the law. I actually think it's probably one of the few ways we can do so. I think, making sure that you're engaging with lawmakers to say, well, no, this is the real world impact of harassment. I think that's really, really important.
What are your aspirations moving forward, both professionally and personally, and how do you plan to continue advocating for positive change?
Yeah, so my aspirations really moving forward, I'm very passionate about women's sport. I'm very passionate about women's football. I'm part of an investment group that, you know, we're buying women's teams around the world, and, you know, I'm very happy to be part of that. It's called Mercury 13. I invested in that. I advise within the group, and, you know, that's a big part of what I want to do. I want to continue shaping the future of women's sport, women's football. I want to continue advocating for, you know, gender equality, equity, better pay, better resources, all of those things that we haven't always had. I want to be part of, you know, promoting that. I think beyond that, you know, I want to, you know, build my own brand, and that's has nothing to do with football. It's more about travel and culture and heritage, and really, you know, bring people together, create meaningful community, allow people to explore the depths of who they are. Those are the things that I'm really passionate about.
Well, you kind of slightly answered the next question, but is there anything else you could tell us about the legacy that you hope to leave behind, not just in sports, but like in your life in general?
Yeah, I think my legacy I would love to leave behind is that I was a change agent, and I really stood up for my own values and stood up for something that didn't just help me but helped other people as well. I think, you know, often when we look back in life, we have to be able to say, well, what did you do? Like, when there was a problem, like when there was an issue, what did you actually do, right? And so for me, the people I'm most inspired by who've gone before me, they did something, they stood, they sacrificed, they made changes, they were advocates, you know, they spoke up. And those are the things that I want to be remembered for.
Of course, football is a team sport. So, what part of being a team helped what about being a team? What did that mean to you for your football career? About working together with other people?
I think being in a team was really fun because you're not alone, you know, and it's about shared purpose and shared goals and shared objectives, and I really enjoyed it, you know, and if you're friends with your teammates as well, that can be really nice because you get to kind of travel the world, you know, in a football team, and playing together and fighting together and achieving together, failing together. That's always a big part of it as well. So, you know, being part of a team was really, really great. It gives you those transferable skills of understanding somebody else, understanding somebody else's perspective, helping somebody to, you know, assisting them in what they're trying to do as well. So teamwork is a big sort of social skill that you need to develop because, you know, we can't work in isolation. We've always got to be working with somebody.
Could you share a small but powerful like change that you made to improve your well-being that others might need?
Yeah, so when I retired from football in 2020, I made a big commitment to stay fit and really invest in my wellness, my fitness, my nutrition. I didn't want to sort of let myself go after I finished playing football. So that's a big part of my life. It's a non-negotiable. So even if I'm really busy, you know, I will take time out of my day, you know, 4 or 5 times a week to train, to make sure I'm looking after my body. I try and eat well as much as I can. I do yoga. I listen to, you know, gospel music. You know, these are all things that keep my mind and my spirit and my body in tune and positive. So yeah, I would encourage that for everybody. I also play chess, so I started playing chess after I finished playing, and I love chess because chess kind of engages a different part of your brain, and you can't be on your phone when you're playing chess. You've got to really focus. So I really enjoy it.
So is there, coming from that, is there any mindset or feeling that you really wish to share with others, or
Yeah, I think I always, I always say to young women like yourselves that we have to validate ourselves. We have to make sure that we tell ourselves good things. I think most young women, there's so much pressure to be perfect. There's so much pressure to, look a certain way or be a certain way. And actually, the beauty is in our differences. The beauty is in what makes us different. And so as much as possible, if you can wake up in the morning and tell yourself nice things about yourself, it builds your confidence and makes you really resistant to some of the nonsense that's online, or some of the expectations of us as women. So I that's a big message for me, is like your self-validation, your self-confidence, and obviously surround yourself with people who love you and like you and give you that confidence as well. But I think it always starts from you. So don't let anybody tell you that anything negative that sort of gets beneath your skin. Build your own confidence so that you're resistant to negativity.
That's great. Thank you so much. I think that's all the questions that we have for you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the great questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.